Hey you guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new, welcome. I am Jasmine and today I'm going to get into my fibroid journey, so stay tuned. Alright, so if you're still here, yes, I am here to discuss fibroids. What are fibroids? What the heck does that even mean? Fibroids are just uterine non-cancerous tumors. So they're just big masses of blood and tissue that usually affect women around their uterus. So it typically has everything to do with your period, your reproductive cycle, those types of things. And it's actually, the rate of fibroids is actually much higher in African American women, for whatever reason, we don't know, than it is in non-African American women. Don't really know. Why do we care about fibroids? Well, fibroids are big masses of tissue. They're not cancerous, but they are around your uterus, which can be a challenge if you are having really heavy periods. If you're oh, by the way, I'm an overshare. If you've never met me, I share a lot, so I'm just gonna say whatever. If you make it, great. If you don't, I hope you do, because it's really good and I'm sharing a part of my journey, but I get it. I'm very open. But so why do we care about fibroids? Well, first of all, it's Fibroids Awareness Month, which is huge because as I have been working through my fibroid journey, I've realized that a lot of women around me actually struggle and have wrestled and dealt with fibroids, and it's so much more common than we think it is. And so I'm so thankful to have even learned, as this is my first year of knowing that uterine fibroids runs in my family, let alone that I've experienced them, and being able to continue to gain and generate awareness around this topic. Anyways, why do we care about fibroids? The third time I've asked you. It is because you have heavy periods, very painful periods. If you have them like the size of mine, they can create challenges as far as pregnancy. I am not in the space of my life to be trying to get pregnant or potentially acting like I'm getting pregnant anytime soon, or accidentally getting pregnant anytime soon that I know of. So I'm not necessarily trying to get pregnant right now, but it has caused a lot of issues and affected a lot of women when it comes to birthing babies and just how they carry them. My mom, myself and my younger brother, when she had us, she had uterine fibroids, and I think she had fibroids with both of us. But again, it's just something that's just a frustrating experience, very challenging. And then knowing that it is even higher and shows up even higher in African American women is very challenging as well, because the mortality rate of African American women in hospitals is much higher. So it very much is necessary for this topic to be discussed, to be educated on, for awareness, for all of those things. And now that I'm working through them myself, I figured it was time for me to share. So I'm 28 years old now, and I did not realize that I had fibroids until I actually ended up in the hospital this past March. So rewind back to actually October, November of last year, 2019, and I was having issues going to the bathroom. So when I would go to pee, I would just sit there for a couple of minutes and then nothing would happen. But I would have the urge to go, but nothing would happen. And so after a few minutes, I would be able to go. And so I just thought, maybe it's caffeine, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So I looked it up. I went to see a urologist. The urologist said, don't really know what it is. He did an ultrasound. I didn't know what I was looking for. He said I was good, so I just didn't worry about it. Fast forward to March of 2020, and I actually, oddly enough, had just gotten back from being in Cancun, Mexico, and I drink a lot of water. So I try to drink a ton of water, or used to, I should say. I need to get back to it, but I try to drink a lot of water, and I would drink about 100 ounces of water a day. So I have 150-ounce water cup that I keep at my office. So I would try to drink one before lunch, one after lunch, which caused me to pee all the time. And if you know me, you know I pee every 15 minutes anyway. Why? Don't know. Can't say for sure. I have the bladder of like a toddler, I guess. And drinking a ton of water obviously increased the amount of times that I went to the restroom. So I was in a meeting at work. It was a Thursday, and I had noticed that it would take me longer to go. But again, because I would go, it wasn't that big of a deal. I talked to the urologist. He just said, chill on your caffeine, take it easy, whatever. Okay. So I sit in a meeting, I have to go, but because I was in this meeting and I'm like, you know what, I'm annoyed, I don't want to have to get up in the middle. I don't want to have to get up in the middle of another meeting to go to the bathroom. I'm always the one that gets up. I'm frustrated. So I just was like, stand your ground against myself. Whatever. Thank God though. And I went to go use the bathroom. I literally sat on the toilet with no movement for an hour and a half. I'm not talking about like you couldn't poop for an hour or you're constipated. No, I could not pee for an hour. And I continue to feel my bladder getting fuller and fuller and fuller. So at this point, I'm freaking out. I'm texting my mom who's a nurse, my aunt who's a nurse, so many people, and they're just like, try this, try this. Stood up, said, I mean, just everything. This is at work. I have cried 3 times by now. I'm freaking myself out. So I finally just say, you know what, I'm going to the hospital because I don't know what to do, and I know that I have to go to the bathroom because in my mind, my bladder's gonna explode. I tend to catastrophize sometimes. My bladder's gonna explode. I didn't have a lot of health issues growing up. Like, me being in the hospital was because I was seeing somebody else. I went to the ER like twice for like little stuff. So me being a patient is weird. Also, this is around the time that everything with the coronavirus is starting to pick up. So hospitals are starting to be like back to back. So gather myself, clean my face up, get my stuff, drive myself to the hospital because ain't nobody taking no ambulance, girl. I'm gonna have to be, you still gonna have to throw my, I just don't, that's not happening. Ambulance, they're great. Now, we're thankful for ambulances and no not, I'm not paying for that. So I'm not doing it. But, so I drove myself to the hospital and ended up getting checked in. They put a catheter in me. I had two cans of pee, that much, in my uterus at one time. I can't remember how many cc's it is. It was a lot, but they take me for a CT scan. I still don't know what's going on. I'm like sad. I don't know what's happening. And so they get back. My mom shows up, which she's the nurse. So when she shows up, she starts talking like nurse dialogue and stuff and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, great. Do that, do that, do that. So she starts talking to the doctor and the doctor goes, hey, you actually have a huge fibroid. Your bladder got stuck behind your fibroid. That's how big it is. What? What? What do you mean? And so I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What do you mean? And so then my mom starts talking about, as like she's talking to the doctor and then the doctor leaves and my mom goes, yeah, well, you know, your grandma had fibroids and then my aunt had fibroids and she got those removed, and it turns out that she actually ended up having like a really, really serious form of cancer in her reproductive organs and stuff, but she just thought it was a fibroid. Like, I'd heard the verbiage before, but I didn't know what it was, especially now that it's affecting me. I'm like, wait, what does this mean? So they have to leave the catheter in because they don't know what is going to happen because of how big it is. I go to the OBGYN the next day. He says it's the size of, so I have 3, I believe. One of them is so big it's the size of if I was 4 months pregnant. That's how big this fibroid is. It's not a baby. It's not like a teratoma. It's not any of those things. It is a mass of tissue and blood that is so big that it has made my uterus be twice as big as it is supposed to be now, and it has my bladder got stuck behind it. That's how big it is. And crazy enough, I felt when I was in my meeting, I felt some type of a shift to where I'm like, oh, I know exactly when my bladder got lodged behind it. So I'm just kind of like, okay. So then I go and sit in the doctor's office. This is a white male OBGYN, right? And he's like, yeah, well, you don't have any kids, do you? know? You're not married, no. Well, if you were older, I would just go ahead and recommend a hysterectomy. A hysterectomy means that you take my uterus out and you throw it away. You take the ovaries out, you take the uterus out, you take the cervix out, which I don't think you can, but whatever. Anything that has to do with a reproductive organ, me carrying children and bearing children, we're going to take that and throw it away because I haven't been to the OBGYN in years, which I have forgotten about. Won't happen again. Because I've always been healthy, so I never prioritized it. Go to the doctor, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. Natural remedies, talk to people, do your research, please. We wouldn't be here if I would have been to the OBGYN, but I'm not going to walk around in shame. It is what it is. So, talk to him, and he's like, a hysterectomy. Now, I'm a Christian, so I'm a believer. So I believe in Jesus Christ, I believe in the Holy Spirit, I believe in God. Period. So I remember back in 2015 that I had a vision. I was in church, and I had a vision of me breastfeeding my baby. You can't breastfeed a baby if you don't carry a baby. You just can't. And so when I'm listening to him talk about a hysterectomy, I'm instantly like, no, that's not what God had said, so we're not going to do this. So I just said, well, we're not going to do that. So what's the other option? he mentions this medicine called Lupron. It is a anti-hormonal. So basically with fibroids, and I apologize because I didn't say this at the beginning, basically with fibroids, we don't know what causes them, but we do know what enhances them, and that's a high hormone, like we just really high in hormones. Some of these things are contributed by your diet. When you hear about like meat and dairy products that are have like antibiotics in it, or those types of other additives and stuff, those contribute to hormone production, which sometimes if you have excess hormone production, that's where fibroids come from, but we don't know exactly what causes it. So that's why diet is so important, exercising, going to your OBGYN, doing your research, those types of things. So I'm in his office like, yeah, no. And he doesn't really have a lot of tact, because I'm in a lot of pain because I still have a catheter in, which if you've never had a catheter, God bless. I wouldn't even wish that on my worst enemy, and I've had 2 of them. Because it's necessary when you're in the hospital and you can't walk. When you're at home and in pain because it's so uncomfortable, like, it's a different conversation and you're not numb. So he said, we're going to take the cath out, give it 24 hours. If you're back tomorrow with issues, we're going to rush you to surgery. Now again, he's basically saying my fibroid is so big that the uterine wall lining of my uterus is so thin that it will be hard to detach the fibroid from my uterus without potentially causing a lot of damage. And in the event of potentially causing any damage, for the sake of not leaving a fibroid in, he would take everything out. So basically it's up to chance is what I'm hearing. Fast forward, take the fibroid out, we move forward. I wrestle with my insurance company for 5 weeks to get this medicine. The same issue that had me in the hospital 5 weeks prior. I'm arguing and I'm going back and forth with my insurance company. Separate conversation. Finally get on this medicine. It's a shot. It is, and also not to mention, one of my oldest sisters actually dealt with fibroids, and hers was way bigger than mine. She got on Lupron, and they were able to do basically like a DNC, which is, for lack of a better term, like an abortion of the fibroid itself, where they go in and basically scrape everything out that doesn't belong, and it's detached itself and all those things. So the goal is to shrink my fibroid down without having to send me to surgery. Fast forward, take the first shot. I have hot flashes, right? It puts you into a temporary menopause because Lupron is a male drug that decreases the level of hormones in your system and increases your testosterone to help balance out your levels. So because I already have a high hormone production, this attacks or basically decreases the amount of hormones, which is essentially menopause. With menopause, if you're not familiar, come side effects like hot flashes, can't sleep, you have to pee all the time, you're very tired, you're emotionally fatigued, you're irritable, just so many things. And so in my mind, I'm trying to wrestle through not succumbing to these emotions because I lived my life as a basket case and I just don't want to do that. I've come too far to continue to be led by my emotions. So working overtime and putting in additional effort to not be a basket case. I just don't want to say blame it on the medicine as to why I just cut your head off. I just don't, So that we're still in a pandemic. So we're still working through the challenges of that. And then wrestling to get on the medicine. It's just been such an interesting process. Fast forward to maybe 2-3 weeks back, I'm having issues going to the bathroom, wake up at 4 a.m., 2 hours later, still can't go to the bathroom. This is after 2 shots on the medicine, okay? So I get to the ER. I didn't even want to go, so I was so defeated that I had to go again because in my mind, we're going to get on the medicine. If it would have been up to me, if we would have been able to surgically remove these fibroids without the medicine, I would have been like, oh, look, just send me to surgery because we'll just get this out of the way and move on. But because we threw around the chance of a potential hysterectomy, I was like, nah, let's do the medicine, be done with it. And even a lot of women, again, more and more women are coming forward as I'm sharing my story, as I'm sharing my experience and saying, do not do a hysterectomy. There are other options. There are other options. Do the medicine. It's worth it. Just do it. So after 2.5 months of being on this medicine, I end up back in the hospital and I'm like, wait, hold on, this should be shrinking me down, we should be good, I shouldn't have any more issues with my bladder, right? End up back in the hospital, come to find out the fibroid's the same size. It has not gotten bigger, it has not gotten smaller. So I just start crying. I'm in the ER hospital room just sobbing, weeping. I think in my mind, I'm like, the medicine's not working. This is pointless. The doctor's going to send me to surgery. Now at this time, I have transitioned from one doctor to a different doctor. The second doctor that I talked to, because I said I wanted a second opinion, because my mom was like, and again, she's worked in the medical field, so she's like, I don't like how he handled you, so no, we're going to somebody else. So another white male doctor who said, no, I don't want to do a hysterectomy, you're too young, we're going to shrink this down, that's what it is. I'm under the understanding that you can only be on the medicine for 3 months. If it doesn't work in 3 months, then you're going to go to surgery. That's what the first doctor said, okay? The second doctor said, oh no, what I learned after going to see him the day after I was in the hospital the second time, that you actually can be on the medicine for up to a year. However, it does, again, create and exhibit some other challenges as far as like your bone density and those types of things. Makes your bones more fragile. And apparently black people have denser bones. Which I was like, what? And so I asked my mom, she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. But don't be calling us big bone though. Big bone is not a thing. So that's different. When you see like a thicker girl, she just a thicker girl. That's it. She's not big bone. Anyways, thinking about, so then I hear from another doctor that you can actually be on it for a year. He said, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and just extend your dosages from 3 months to 6. Now I didn't know it was an option, so that was part of why I was freaking out in the ER. They're gonna send me to surgery. You said I can only be on it for 3 months. I'm just about to get my third shot. Nothing's happening. What's going on? I've completely fallen apart. And I thank God for the village that's around me. I thank God for the Holy Spirit that's around me, that has been ministering to me and loving me and comforting me. Because when I started the process, it was, yeah, I have fibroids, but it's all good because God said I'm gonna deliver. So that's what it is. I'm gonna breastfeed, I'm gonna deliver, and that's it. Whereas now I think it's a matter of like really balancing and understanding, like, first of all, I have to really continue to lean in. He's challenging and he's building my faith through this experience. Is it painful? Are fibroids painful to me? No, they're painful to other women that I know have dealt with a lot of pain and other effects that I never dealt with, which is how it got to this size and I didn't even realize it. Not to mention going to the urologist, he said he didn't say anything, and I'm just like, how? You're talking, again, things that I'm working through with the medical profession. But as far as faith goes, leaning into God and saying, I'm believing that what you said is true. I'm going to believe it. Now, I'm still working through this. I have not had any verification that my fibroids are smaller. I have not had any surgery, because that's what we're apparently working towards. I'm praying and believing that I won't need surgery and that they will shrink and dissolve on their own, and that I will have a procedure similar to that of my oldest sister who did not need surgery. But we're 6 months on the medicine. Myomectomy. A myomectomy is just some type of a surgical removal of the fibroids from my uterus. And I'm single. I don't have a husband. I don't have a boyfriend. Okay, I have a boyfriend. So just thinking about all of these things and how it affects my life as a family, God is really dealing with my faith. He's really helped me to cement and further solidify my faith, how I practice my faith, how I walk it out, how I, surrender my feelings back to Him, surrender my anxiousness back to Him, and going, even at the end of all of it, you're still good, you're still God, and you're still good to me, And I did an IG story last week or something after leaving one of my shots, where it's just like leaving to get my third shot, and I was just saying, like, I'm tired, I'm nervous, like, but I'm not, I feel the emotions, but I'm not going to surrender to them. You can feel your emotions, but you don't have to submit to your emotions. You can surrender your emotions, because life happens. We're still in a pandemic. Another family member went through a life-altering experience, and I'm like, what? Had to work through that last week. Like, there's so many things happening, and it's just like, okay, but God, I'm going to submit myself here. I'm going to be challenged by my friends and my loved ones to say, no, you're not going to succumb to these feelings. You're not going to be led, because you're spiraling. Like, I'm so thankful for people around me that recognize, pause, you're spiraling. Let's take a step back. Take a step back. Let's take it back to the basics. What does God's word say? Who is He? How has He loved you even now? Like, just people that just love me through my challenges. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for that. And even in the middle of my story, because I typically like to wait until stuff's over and then circle back, I'm going to walk through this with you guys, or you guys will walk through it with me, I should say. And understand that I'm going to believe that God is going to dissolve these fibroids by natural alternatives, and then I've already paid $1 million for this medicine. $1 million. And mind you, I've never been a fan of medicine. I've never been a fan of any of those things. No knock. I've always just been like, yeah, I'm good, because I've always been healthy for the most part. So even having to humble myself in that regard and just like, God, however you're going to do it. You know, I'm just so thankful for just everything. And even now, I still don't know how much longer I'm going to be on the medicine. I don't know if I am going to end up needing surgery or not. But I'm praying and believing that I won't. And I just want to get on here just to share that with you and to encourage you and to let you know that, like, people look at me and think I don't have nothing going on. What? First of all, don't. Okay? Like, I feel like if you look at me like that, that gives the enemy another reason to go, great, so I'll throw some more stuff at her. Because y'all have no idea. It's hard out here. I want to sing that song from Hustle and Flow, but I won't. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for hanging out with me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Be in prayer for me, please. But if you pray to Jesus, if you pray to somebody else, don't pray to somebody else on my behalf. You pray to Jesus. I pray to Jesus. Okay? So if you're not praying to Jesus, you can leave me out of that conversation. With that being said, I'll see you guys next week. Love you. Bye!